On her wedding day, Clara Whitmore was seconds away from saying, "I do" to the man she helped turn into a billionaire, until his ex stormed in and asked him to choose. In front of everyone, he chose the woman who once called him worthless, leaving Clara broken on the floor. But while he chased a love from his past, he had no idea he was walking straight into a trap that would cost him everything. And the only person who could save him, let's find out. Hello fam, welcome to True Love Stories, where we share interesting and intriguing stories. Please do well to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Do not forget to like and share with your loved ones. Now let's dive into the story. Atlanta's skyline shimmered under the late afternoon sun, a city built on ambition, resilience, and reinvention. Among the sharp suits and polished reputations moving through its elite circles, Clara Whitmore stood in a class of her own. Clara wasn't loud about her power. She didn't need to be. With her precision-cut silk press styled into a flawless shoulder-length bob and a wardrobe that whispered luxury rather than screamed it, she carried herself with a quiet authority that made people listen when she spoke and remember when she didn't. But her story didn't begin in boardrooms or gala halls. It began with a man everyone else had already dismissed. Elijah Vaughn. Years ago, Elijah was just another dreamer in a crowded city, pitching ideas no one believed in. His sneakers were worn, his presentations rough, and his confidence, though determined, was fragile under constant rejection. Investors didn't see potential. They saw risk. Except Clara. She met him at a small tech networking event. One of those gatherings where ambition fills the room, but opportunity rarely shows up. Elijah had been standing off to the side, laptop in hand, trying to explain his concept to people who barely gave him a minute. Clara listened. Really listened. Not just to what he said, but to what he meant. After he finished, she asked him questions no one else had bothered to ask. Not to challenge him, but to refine him. "You don't have a bad idea," she told him that night. "You just don't know how to present it yet." That moment changed everything. Clara didn't just believe in Elijah, she invested in him. Her money kept his early prototypes alive. Her connections opened doors that had been shut in his face. Her discipline reshaped his vision into something investors couldn't ignore. She introduced him to venture capitalists in Midtown, coached him through late-night rehearsals before major pitches, sat beside him after every rejection, helping him rebuild instead of break. And slowly, the world began to see what Clara had seen from the start. Elijah Vaughn wasn't just another hopeful entrepreneur. He was inevitable. Within 5 years, his tech company exploded into one of the fastest-growing AI firms in the country. Headlines crowned him a genius. Interviews praised his self-made journey. Clara never corrected them. She didn't need public credit. Because in private, Elijah never forgot. At least, that's what she believed. On the morning of their wedding, Clara stood in the bridal suite of an upscale Atlanta venue, the city stretching wide beneath the floor-to-ceiling windows. Her gown, custom-made, elegant, and timeless, fit her like it had been designed from her very thoughts. Soft waves flowed from her jet-black lace frontal wig, cascading over her shoulders with effortless grace. Her reflection stared back at her, not just as a bride, but as a woman who had earned this moment. Her best friend, Danielle Brooks, adjusted the delicate veil resting on Clara's head. "You built a billionaire," Danielle said with a teasing smile. "Now you're about to marry one." Clara let out a soft laugh, though her eyes held something deeper. "I didn't build him," she said gently. "I just stood by him when nobody else would." Danielle raised an eyebrow. "Clara, you are the reason he's standing at that altar today." Clara didn't respond right away. Instead, she looked down at her engagement ring, a flawless diamond Elijah had chosen himself, a symbol of everything they had been through. The late nights, the sacrifices, the unwavering belief. "I never needed him to be rich," she said quietly. "I just needed him to stay the man I fell in love with." There was a brief silence in the room. Not uncomfortable, just heavy with truth. Across the venue, Elijah Vaughn stood in a private suite, adjusting the cuffs of his tailored tuxedo. The same man who once struggled to afford rent now commanded a net worth that placed him among the most powerful young entrepreneurs in America. But in that moment, none of that mattered. Today wasn't about business. It was about Clara, the woman who saw him when he was invisible, the woman who chose him before the world did. His best man clapped him on the shoulder. "You ready, man? This is it." Elijah smiled, but there was a flicker of something unreadable behind it. "Yeah," he said. "I'm ready." As guests filled the grand hall, whispers of admiration filled the air. "She's the one who helped him, right? I heard she funded his first deal. They've been through everything together." Clara stood just behind the doors, bouquet in hand, heart steady but full. This wasn't just a wedding. It was the closing chapter of a long journey, and the beginning of something even greater. The music began. The doors slowly opened. And as Clara took her first step forward, walking toward the man she had loved, supported, and believed in against all odds, she had no idea that everything she built, every sacrifice, every moment, every dream, was seconds away from collapsing in front of the entire world. The music swelled through the grand hall, soft and orchestral, wrapping the moment in something almost sacred. Clara Whitmore stepped forward, each movement measured, graceful, and certain. The aisle stretched before her like a promise fulfilled, lined with white roses, crystal pillars, and a room full of people who knew, in one way or another, that this wedding meant more than most. At the end of it stood Elijah Vaughn, waiting. He looked at her the way he always had, like she was the calm in every storm he'd ever faced. His expression softened as she walked toward him, and for a moment, everything felt exactly as it should. "This is right," Clara thought. "This is everything we worked for." Her heels clicked gently against the polished floor, her bouquet steady in her hands. Guests smiled, some wiping away quiet tears. Cameras captured every second of what was supposed to be a perfect union. Clara reached the altar. Elijah took her hands. They fit together like they always had. The officiant smiled warmly. "We are gathered here today to witness the union of..." Bang! The doors slammed open. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The music faltered. Conversations died mid-breath. Every head in the room turned toward the entrance. And then, she appeared. Tasha Loran. She stood framed by the doorway like a scene out of a movie, draped in a fitted black designer gown that hugged every curve with calculated precision. Her long, bone-straight jet black wig fell past her waist, swaying slightly as she stepped forward in towering heels that clicked sharply against the floor. Her makeup was flawless. Her expression? Unapologetic, unbothered, certain. A ripple of whispers tore through the crowd. "Is that? No way. That's his ex." Clara's grip on Elijah's hands tightened slightly. She didn't turn immediately. She didn't need to, because she already knew. Tasha Loran, the woman who had once been Elijah's fiancée. The same woman who had walked away from him when his bank account couldn't match her expectations. The same woman who had called him a dead end and a waste of time. And now, she was here. Tasha walked down the aisle slowly, deliberately, as if she had every right to be there. Her eyes never left Elijah. Not once. Clara finally turned, her heart beginning to pound, not with fear, but with disbelief. This isn't happening. Tasha stopped just a few feet from the altar, her gaze flicking briefly to Clara before returning to Elijah, like Clara was nothing more than a temporary inconvenience. "Elijah," she said smoothly, her voice carrying through the silent room. He froze. Not a step forward. Not a word. Just stillness. Clara felt it immediately. Something shifted. Something subtle, but undeniable. Tasha tilted her head slightly, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Don't marry her." A collective gasp filled the room. The officiant stepped back, unsure. Guests leaned forward, drawn into a moment that had suddenly turned from celebration to confrontation. Clara straightened, her voice calm but firm. "You need to leave." Tasha didn't even look at her this time. "It's me you love," she continued, her tone soft but piercing. "And I'm back to accept you." The words hung in the air like smoke. Clara's chest tightened, but she refused to let it show. Accept him? She repeated, incredulous now. You left him. You made it very clear you didn't want him. Tasha finally glanced at her, her expression cool, almost amused. People make mistakes. No, Clara said, her voice sharpening slightly. People make choices. And you made yours. A flicker of tension passed through the room. For a second, it felt like Clara had regained control of the moment. But then, she felt Elijah's hands. They weren't steady anymore. She turned back to him. His expression had changed. Gone was the certainty. Gone was the warmth. In its place, confusion, conflict, something dangerously close to doubt. Clara's heart dropped. Elijah, she said softly, searching his face. Look at me. He did. But it wasn't the look she expected. Tasha took a step closer, her confidence growing with every second of silence. You don't have to pretend anymore, she said gently. We both know what this is. Clara's breath hitched. What is this, Elijah? She asked, her voice quieter now, but heavier. He didn't answer. And that silence, it said more than anything he could have spoken. Tasha's lips curved into the slightest smile. Then she delivered the final blow. Choose. The word landed like a verdict. Between past and present. Between ego and loyalty. Between the woman who left and the woman who stayed. Clara stared at Elijah, her entire world narrowing down to that one moment. Say something. Do something. Choose me. But deep down, for the first time since she met him, Clara wasn't sure he would. The word choose didn't just linger in the air. It pressed down on everyone in the room, suffocating, inescapable. Clara could hear her own heartbeat. Slow, heavy, unforgiving. Everything around her blurred. The guests, the flowers, the music that had long since faded into silence. All that remained was Elijah standing in front of her, and the woman behind him, waiting like she already knew the outcome. Elijah, Clara said, her voice steadier than she felt. Look at me. He did. But it wasn't the same look he had given her moments ago when she walked down the aisle. That look had been love. This one, uncertainty. And uncertainty, Clara realized in that instant, was far more dangerous than rejection. You don't have to entertain this, she continued, tightening her grip on his hands. We've built something real. Don't let someone who walked away come back and confuse you. Behind him, Tasha let out a quiet, almost amused exhale. Confuse him, she repeated. Clara, I'm not confusing him. I'm reminding him. Clara's jaw tightened. You lost the right to remind him of anything the day you left. Tasha took another step forward, her heels echoing sharply. And yet here I am. Her eyes locked onto Elijah again, softer now, almost intimate. Tell me I'm wrong, she said. Tell me you didn't think about me. Tell me you didn't compare every moment with her to what we had. The room leaned into his silence. Clara's chest rose and fell slowly. Don't answer that, she said quickly, her voice low but urgent. You don't owe her anything. But Elijah wasn't looking at Clara anymore. His gaze had drifted, pulled, almost magnetically, back to Tasha. And that was the moment Clara felt it. Not the break, but the crack. Small, sharp, irreversible. Elijah, Tasha said gently, stepping close enough now that she was within arm's reach. We were unfinished. You know that. Clara shook her head, disbelief creeping in. No, she left you. That was the ending. Tasha didn't argue. She didn't need to, because Elijah still hadn't spoken. Clara's voice softened, desperation threading through it now despite her effort to stay composed. We've been through everything, she said. I stood by you when no one else did. When you had nothing, I was there. That finally made him react. His eyes flickered. Guilt. Memory. Truth. Clara stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper now. Don't throw that away. Don't throw me away. For a moment, a brief, fragile moment, it looked like he might choose her. Like he might remember. Like he might come back. But then, Tasha reached out and lightly touched his arm. And just like that, something shifted. Elijah exhaled slowly, like a man surrendering to something he had been fighting long before this moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. Too quiet. She's right, he said. Clara blinked. What? He turned to her fully now, but he couldn't hold her gaze for long. He swallowed. I never stopped loving her. The words didn't hit Clara all at once. They sank in slowly, cruelly, like a truth her heart refused to process. What are you saying? She asked, her voice cracking despite her effort to stay composed. Elijah closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again, this time with a painful kind of finality. She's the one I love, he said. The world stopped. I'm sorry, Clara. I can't go through with this wedding. It was quiet. Too quiet. Then, a sharp ringing filled Clara's ears as the weight of his words finally crashed into her. Her fingers loosened around the bouquet. It slipped. Fell. Petals scattered across the floor like something fragile being destroyed in real time. No, she whispered. Her vision blurred. Her knees weakened beneath her. And before she could stop it, she fell. The impact barely registered. All she felt was the pain. Not physical. Something deeper. Something far worse. Tears spilled uncontrollably as a broken sound escaped her chest, raw, unfiltered, and impossible to hide. Around her, chaos erupted. Guests whispering. Some standing. Others turning away, uncomfortable, embarrassed for her. But Clara didn't see any of it. All she saw was Elijah, the man she had loved, the man she had built, the man who had just chosen someone else. Tasha didn't look surprised. She looked satisfied. She stepped beside Elijah, slipping her hand into his like it had always belonged there. Let's go, she said softly. And he did. No hesitation now. No looking back. Together, they walked down the same aisle Clara had just walked up, leaving behind shattered expectations, broken vows, and a woman on the ground trying to breathe through a pain she had never prepared for. Clara remained there long after they were gone, her veil slightly crooked, her dress spread around her like a cruel reminder of what this day was supposed to be. Danielle rushed to her side, kneeling, holding her shoulders. Clara, look at me. But Clara couldn't respond, because in that moment, something inside her had been stripped away. Not just love, not just trust, but belief. And as the tears continued to fall, one truth settled quietly, deeply, into her soul. The man she thought she knew never truly existed. For 30 days, Clara Whitmore disappeared. No interviews, no appearances, no statements. The media, however, did not extend her the same courtesy. Clips of her collapse at the altar flooded every platform. Headlines twisted the knife. Billionaire groom leaves bride for ex at the altar. The woman behind his success abandoned. Public humiliation of Clara Whitmore goes viral. Everyone had an opinion. Few understood the truth. Inside her penthouse overlooking Buckhead, Clara allowed herself to feel it all. The anger, the betrayal, the humiliation. She didn't suppress it. She didn't rush to be strong. She let it burn through her completely. There were nights she didn't sleep. Mornings she didn't leave her bed. Moments where the silence felt louder than the chaos she had escaped. But Clara was not fragile. She was wounded. And there's a difference. Because wounds, when handled correctly, heal into something stronger than what existed before. On the 31st day, Clara stood in front of her mirror. Not as a bride, not as someone's almost wife, but as herself. Her reflection had changed. The softness in her eyes had sharpened into focus. The warmth had not disappeared, but it was no longer freely given. Her hair was styled into a sleek, layered pixie-cut wig, framing her face with precision and power. Her makeup was minimal, intentional. Her outfit, tailored, monochrome, commanding. This wasn't reinvention. This was reclamation. I'm done mourning what didn't choose me, she said quietly to her reflection. And just like that, Clara Whitmore returned. The business world noticed immediately. An invitation here. A meeting there. Then another. People who had once respected her behind the scenes were now seeking her out directly. Because the truth had begun to circulate, not the headlines, but the reality. Clara Whitmore wasn't just part of Elijah Vaughn's success. She had been essential to it. And now, She was available. Her first move was calculated. Clara launched Whitmore Dynamics, a consulting and investment firm focused on scaling early-stage tech companies, especially those overlooked by traditional investors. It wasn't just business. It was personal. She saw herself in those founders. The overlooked, the underestimated, the dismissed. And she knew exactly how to turn potential into power. Within months, her firm began closing deals. Within a year, it was dominating conversations. Her strategies were sharp. Her instincts unmatched. Her presence in a room, undeniable. She didn't chase validation. She commanded results. At a high-profile tech summit in New York, Clara made her first major public appearance since the wedding. The room shifted the moment she walked in. Her fitted charcoal suit hugged her frame with quiet authority. Her heels struck the floor with purpose. Cameras turned. Conversations paused. Not because of what happened to her, but because of what she had become. During her panel, a moderator, bold enough to ask what others wouldn't, leaned forward and said, "Clara, many people still associate you with Elijah Vaughn. How does it feel to step out of that shadow?" The room stilled. Clara didn't flinch. She didn't hesitate. And she didn't smile. "I was never in his shadow," she said calmly. "I was the structure holding his spotlight in place." A pause. Then, "I've simply redirected that light." The room erupted. Not out of sympathy. Out of respect. Meanwhile, Clara's personal life remained private. No public relationships. No scandal. No distractions. Not because she couldn't move on, but because she chose not to rush. She had learned something at that altar. Something most people only understand too late. Love without loyalty is a liability. And Clara Whitmore no longer invested in liabilities. By the end of the second year, her name carried weight far beyond Atlanta. She had built partnerships across cities, expanded her firm internationally, mentored founders who were now becoming giants in their own right. And unlike before, this empire had no hidden foundations, no unspoken contributions, no overlooked architect. Everything bore her name. One evening, as she stood in her office overlooking the city lights, Danielle stepped in, leaning casually against the doorframe. "You ever think about him?" Danielle asked. Clara didn't turn around immediately. When she did, her expression wasn't bitter. It was clear. "No," she said simply. Then, after a brief pause, "I think about the lesson." Danielle nodded slowly. "And what's that?" Clara glanced back out at the skyline, the same city where she had once built a man who walked away from her. This time, her voice carried no pain, only truth. Never build someone who isn't strong enough to stand beside you. And as the city pulsed with life beneath her, one thing was certain. Clara Whitmore didn't just recover. She ascended, while Elijah Vaughn walked away from the woman who helped him become everything. Clara became something far more dangerous. A woman who no longer needed anyone. To become everything. At first, it felt like fate had corrected itself. That's what Elijah told himself. Waking up beside Tasha Loran again, the woman he had once loved so intensely it clouded his judgment, felt like reclaiming something unfinished. Something powerful. Something that had been taken from him too soon. Or so he believed. Tasha played her role flawlessly. She was attentive, affectionate, present in ways she had never been before. She laughed at his jokes again, touched his arm the way she used to, looked at him like he was still the center of her world. And Elijah, despite everything, fell back into it. Completely. "Things are different now," she told him one night, her voice soft as she traced patterns against his chest. "You're not the same man I left." Elijah gave a small smile. "And you're not the same woman either." Tasha's lips curved. She didn't correct him. At first, the changes were subtle. Small suggestions. "Maybe you should let me handle that meeting. You've been overworking. You don't need to trust everyone around you, Elijah. Some people only stayed because of what you were becoming. I just want to protect you." It sounded like love. It felt like care. But slowly it became control. Elijah began canceling meetings, then delegating more authority to Tasha. She started sitting in on executive decisions, then leading them, then making them without him. At first, his board questioned it, but Tasha was sharp, persuasive, strategic, and most importantly, Elijah defended her. "She's with me," he'd say. "Trust her." So they did. Weeks turned into months. And somewhere along the way, Elijah stopped noticing what he was losing. Because what Tasha gave him in return was something far more intoxicating. Validation. She made him feel chosen, desired, important, not for what he built, but for who he was. It filled a space Clara had never needed to fill. And that difference cost him everything. The accident happened on a quiet evening. There were no cameras, no witnesses willing to speak, just a sudden fall down the staircase in his own home. That's what the report said. When Elijah woke up, the world had changed. The ceiling above him was unfamiliar. The air smelled like antiseptic. And his body didn't respond. Panic surged through him as he tried to move his legs. Nothing. His arms barely responsive. His voice gone. A strangled sound escaped his throat, but no words followed. Just silence. Permanent. Tasha was there. Of course she was. Sitting beside his hospital bed, her hand gently wrapped around his. Her expression concerned. Perfectly concerned. "Oh my God, Elijah," she whispered, her voice trembling just enough. "You're awake." Tears filled his eyes, not from relief, but from fear. Something wasn't right. Something felt wrong. Recovery was slow, but not in the way people expected. There was no improvement, no breakthrough, no hope. Doctors were confused. Tests came back inconclusive. Neurological trauma, they said. Complications. Tasha nodded, always present, always supportive. Always watching. Once he returned home, things shifted again. More noticeably this time. His office was no longer his. His access to company systems restricted. Meetings happened without him. Decisions were made without his input. And Tasha? She stepped fully into power. Elijah sat in his wheelchair near the window of his own mansion, watching as life continued without him. He couldn't speak, could barely move, couldn't stop what was happening right in front of him. Documents were brought in. His hand guided. Signatures taken. Control transferred. Then came the truth. Not hidden. Not masked. Delivered plainly. Cruelly. One evening, Tasha walked into the room, no pretense this time. No softness. No affection. Behind her stood a man Elijah had never seen before. Tall. Calculated. Comfortable. Too comfortable. Tasha crossed her arms, her gaze cold. "You always were easy to read," she said. Elijah's chest tightened. The man beside her chuckled lightly. All that money, all that power, and still so predictable. Tasha stepped closer, crouching slightly to meet Elijah's eye level. "You really thought I came back for you?" she asked. Tears filled his eyes instantly. He couldn't respond. Couldn't scream. Couldn't fight. "I came back for this," she continued, gesturing around the room. "The company. The assets. The life you built." She tilted her head slightly. "With help, of course." She glanced briefly at the man beside her. Partner. Accomplice. Something worse. Elijah's breathing grew heavier, his chest rising rapidly as the weight of it all crashed down on him. Clara. Her voice echoed in his mind. Her warnings. Her loyalty. Her love. And what did he do? He chose this. Tasha straightened, smoothing her dress as if nothing had happened. "Don't worry," she said casually. "We'll take good care of everything." A pause. Then, almost as an afterthought, "You just sit and watch." And that's exactly what he did. For 2 years. The billionaire who once commanded industries became a silent prisoner in his own home. Staff followed Tasha's orders. His accounts drained. His company restructured, under her control. His name slowly removed from relevance. He lived in luxury, but like a ghost. Unheard. Unseen. Powerless. Regret became his only companion. It sat with him in the mornings. Stayed with him through the nights. Whispered the same truth over and over again. You traded loyalty for illusion. And now, you have nothing. Until one day, by accident or fate, a phone was left within his reach. And for the first time in 2 years, Elijah Vaughn had a chance to be heard, even if only through a screen. The phone wasn't supposed to be there. One of the house staff, new, careless, or maybe just distracted, had left it on the side table near the window where Elijah spent most of his days. For anyone else, it would have meant nothing. For Elijah Vaughn, it was everything. His eyes locked onto it instantly. His heart began to race. Slowly, painfully, he forced his fingers to move. Every inch felt like lifting weights tied to his bones. His hand trembled as it dragged across the armrest of his wheelchair. Closer, closer, until finally, his fingertips brushed the phone. It slipped, nearly fell, but somehow he caught it against his leg. A broken breath escaped his throat. He had one chance. Unlocking it took time. Too much time. His fingers didn't cooperate. The screen dimmed twice before he managed to swipe it open. Each second felt stolen, fragile, like it could disappear at any moment. Then, the messages. Contacts. Names. So many names. But only one mattered. Clara Whitmore. His vision blurred with tears as he tapped her name. For a moment, he froze. What do you even say when you've destroyed the only person who ever truly stood by you? There was no apology big enough. No explanation good enough. No undoing what he had done. But this wasn't about redemption. This was survival. His fingers trembled violently as he typed, slow, uneven, painful. Clara, help me. She did this. I'm not safe. He paused, then added, please. Sending the message felt like dropping his last piece of hope into the unknown. The phone slipped from his hand. Silence returned, and all Elijah could do was wait. Across the country, in her glass-walled office overlooking Manhattan, Clara Whitmore was in the middle of a meeting when her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it. Almost. But something instinct, perhaps, made her glance down. And when she saw the name, her expression changed. Not dramatically. Not emotionally. Just sharply. Focused. The room continued talking, unaware. Clara read the message once. Then again. Her jaw tightened slightly. Not from heartbreak. From recognition. Something wasn't right. And unlike before. Clara didn't hesitate. Reschedule the rest of my meetings, she said, standing abruptly. Her assistant blinked. All of them? All of them. Her tone left no room for negotiation. Within minutes, Clara was on the phone, her voice calm, precise, and commanding. Private investigators. Legal teams. Security specialists. She didn't react emotionally. She responded strategically. Dig into everything connected to Tasha Loran, she instructed. Financials, property records, internal company shifts, everything. I want proof, not assumptions. And Clara, one of her attorneys asked carefully, what exactly are we looking for? Clara's gaze hardened slightly as she looked out over the city. The truth, she said. It didn't take long. Because people like Tasha, they always left a trail. Hidden accounts. Forged signatures. Suspicious medical reports. Internal transfers that didn't align. And most importantly, a pattern. One that painted a very clear picture. Within hours, Clara had everything she needed. By the fourth day, authorities were involved. The mansion that once symbolized Elijah Vaughn's success became the center of a full-scale investigation. Police arrived without warning. Warrants in hand. Questions ready. Tasha didn't panic. Not at first. She had been careful. Calculated. Prepared. But she hadn't planned for one thing. Clara. Tasha Loran, an officer said firmly. You're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and aggravated abuse. The shift in her expression was subtle. But it was there. That crack. That moment where control slipped. Elijah watched from his wheelchair as chaos unfolded around him. Voices raised. Footsteps rushed. Handcuffs clicked. Tasha turned briefly, just long enough for their eyes to meet. No softness. No regret. Just cold acknowledgement. Then she was gone. The man beside her? Arrested too. And just like that, the illusion ended. Elijah was rushed to a private medical facility arranged by Clara's team. Specialists evaluated him. Treatments were attempted. But the damage was permanent. He would never walk again, never speak again. And most of his fortune? Gone. Legally transferred. Nearly impossible to recover in full. Weeks later, Clara visited. Not out of obligation. Not out of love. But for closure. The room was quiet when she walked in. Elijah sat by the window, just as he had in the mansion. But this time, there were no illusions left around him. Only truth. He turned when he sensed her presence. And when he saw her, his eyes filled instantly. Clara stood a few feet away. Composed. Unshaken. Untouchable. Her hair, styled in a sleek, asymmetrical bob wig, framed her face with sharp elegance. Her presence carried the kind of power that didn't need to announce itself. It was simply felt. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, tears rolled down Elijah's face. Fast. Heavy. Desperate. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Only silence. Only regret. Clara watched him. Not coldly. Not warmly. Just clearly. "I got your message," she said. Her voice was calm. Even. Measured. He tried again to speak. Nothing. His hands trembled slightly, frustration and grief pouring through him with nowhere to go. Clara took a small step closer. "Zariah didn't destroy your life, Elijah," she said quietly. "She just finished what you started." The words landed. Not cruel, but honest. More tears. More silence. "You had everything," she continued. "Loyalty. Support. Love. A pause. And you walked away from it." Elijah closed his eyes. Because he knew. He knew. When Clara spoke again, her tone softened, but not with affection. With finality. "I didn't come here for an apology," she said. "And I'm not here to rebuild anything." She held his gaze. "You made your choice." She turned slightly, preparing to leave. Then stopped. Just for a second. "I hope you heal," she added. "Not, I forgive you. Not, I miss you. Just that." And then she walked out. Elijah sat there long after she was gone. Alone. Trapped in the consequences of a single decision. He had once been a billionaire. Admired. Respected. Powerful. Now, he had nothing but time. Time to remember. Time to regret. Time to understand that the woman he left at the altar was the only one who ever truly chose him. And this time, she never looked back. Finally, we have come to the end of this story. I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, do well to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories.